Welcome, you guys. Would you like to start out by kind of giving us a quick little introduction to each of you and then maybe how you guys met?
Sure.
That'd be great. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're Spencer and Laura Pettit. Uh, where do we start? We met when we were 16, and we met at a church summer camp. The day before it was time to go home, I saw her and asked for her information, and she originally turned me down, but that she was willing to give me her email.
We lived in separate states at the time. He grew up in Arizona and I was in New Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
And I finally got the courage to email her after the initial rejection event, and she responded and
didn't remember who he was.
Long story short, a couple years later, we were emailing and in contact every day, and then I went away for a couple of years to do a church service mission, and we kept in contact loosely through that time. And
I was in college, up in Utah, and his family moved up there while he was gone. So when he came home, he came to where I was going to college. And so we connected again and got married 8 months later.
Wow. That's awesome. So you guys have definitely known each other for a while.
Yeah, so
it's been a long time.
We've known each other for a while. We realized that we've now known each other longer than we haven't. This is
18 years. We've known each other for 18 years.
A new era we're passing into.
Fun.
All of that has led to a couple of college degrees. I finished in business management and marketing, and Laura's expertise is in exercise science, and she has continued her study of exercise physiology and all things nutrition and all that, which led us actually into our business here.
Yes.
And we have 3 kids, and they're currently 10, 7, and 4, girl, boy, girl. And we just concluded a year and a half of full-time travel. Our business freed us up enough that we were able to sell everything in April of 2016. And we sold everything, our house and everything in it, bought an RV and a truck, and we traveled mostly the Western United States for a year and a half, fell in love with the Pacific Northwest, spent a lot of time together as a family. And in the time leading up to that, and now after, we homeschool our kids. And so if there's one way to introduce us in a nutshell, it's that we really love being together as a family. We've done everything we can to be together. So, yeah, that's us.
That's good. That's a fun story. And now you're back. Now you're in a home, right? Now you're settled down.
It's so weird to be back in a house and
with stuff,
furniture. Yeah, buying things, space, a lot of space.
Yeah,
it's really been an adjustment.
Well, so tell us a little bit about what business you're in together.
So we started back in. It kind of might sound a little complicated, but back in 2009, we were introduced to the world of essential oils, and that led. It initially began with skepticism, as a lot of people do, and that led eventually, after a year and a half, to having some experiences with it, where I finally made the decision to partner with some former business partners and to actually make a run at seeing if we could grow a distribution channel on it. And so that was predominantly my project at the time. But
we had 2 young kids at the time, 6-month-old baby, and so I was just wanting to do the kid thing, stay at home with our babies, and he was doing the business, and so at that time we weren't doing anything really together.
Sure. But she kind of misspeaks when she says that, though, because concurrently she was also researching like a mad woman how to clean up our lifestyle, how to improve our nutrition, improve our health. And what it led to was that I would go out and I was teaching essential oil courses by this point. We were using a lot of essential oils and other related products and doing a lot of education. And I would come home and then she would teach me a whole slew of other things tied to health and wellness. And those would become my bullet points for my next presentation. And so even though she wasn't actively working on the business building activities that we were engaged in, she was definitely...
It was like research and development.
Yeah, she was the R&D. Yeah.
Behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And it was a great support to me. She was very supportive, very helpful. And so in that entrepreneurial space, having that spousal support meant everything. And knowing that she had my back, and knowing that I could ask her questions and that she would come back with answers and things like that, we actually were a team from the get-go, even though she didn't feel a lot of ownership for the business producing activities. I definitely relied on her a lot for shaping how I saw things and how I did things, because I was entering the industry more out of interest for the opportunity to grow something in a space that still currently is a very fast-growing, attractive space in the health and wellness world. The essential oil space has grown quite a bit and is projected to grow substantially over the next 10 years. And so I'd always wanted to be involved in a growing industry, and this was a place within health and wellness that was really growing strong. And so, with her support, though, it really kind of rounded everything out. I started drinking green things for breakfast, and I started, we started cutting certain processed and inflammatory food groups out of our diet, experimenting with different things and finding how we felt. And over a period of about 5 years, we really shifted our lifestyle and how we lived. And Laura was predominantly in the lead for that. So it didn't matter what I'd studied or what I was telling people or what I was out there teaching. What mattered was the practice in our home.
Yep.
So can you talk a little bit about kind of where you're at now as kind of a partnership together in the business, and how that kind of came about, how you kind of decided to do that and got to the point where you are today?
Yeah. So how many years ago? Like 2, 3?
I think over 2 years ago. Yeah.
I think probably like 2.5 years ago, I started wanting to get more involved in the business. Our kids were getting a little bit older. I was seeing, honestly, all of the growth, personal growth and development that he was going through. And I wanted part of that for myself as well. And to stretch myself in different ways that I hadn't done yet. So we decided to form what we now call our business, which is Build Mind Body, where we focus on building every aspect of your lifestyle, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, because we believe that all of those things are combined together to make you who you are. Like, all of those are necessary components to have a healthy, happy lifestyle. So I started getting involved with that and doing more with what I'd been researching for so long, health and nutrition and fitness. I teach fitness classes, and we do nutrition classes, and we share a lot of recipes and tips and tricks on social media. And that is kind of where I'm at with my level of participation, is doing all of those things.
Well, what we realized is that, anybody can go out and sell a product, and you can set yourself up as a distributor on Amazon, or you can go teach home parties, or you can set up literally a stand on the side of the road if you want to sell things. But it doesn't mean a thing if you don't know the product and the lifestyle that it supports inside and out. And that's the bigger picture of what had happened. Is over the years, what had happened is that we were on our own personal journey with this, and with all of the research that Laura was doing, she was very well equipped to come in as almost like the head of information in the company, where I had the business background, I had the sales background. Prior to starting our own business, I was in directed marketing departments and teams of web developers and copywriters, and did the hiring and firing thing, and realized that I really loved working for myself and all of the benefits that come, including time freedom as the business started to succeed, I realized it was bigger than just a product, and that we needed to be representing a lifestyle. And there's no schools that you can go to or programs, programs that you can enroll in that really teach you the day-to-day application of these kinds of things. And so we realized that there's a great need for a business like ours that can kind of give the whole picture. And if I dare say, in a way that's not weird and that's not fringe and uncomfortable. It's not like you're going to come in and we're going to be like, hey, let me show you our collection of bells and crystals and different things. And I'm going to look at your
They'll
aura.
Change your life all on their own.
Not that those things don't have their place in certain modalities, and I'm certainly not talking down about it, but they're not as mainstream. And we wanted to make sure that we came at it with an approach where we showed how simple it was. And I think, let's just take Costco as an example. Costco is now the world's largest distributor of organic food products. And that hasn't always been the case. And they're making business decisions to get to that point. And it's because there's a real movement happening. People are waking up with the plethora of information available online now about how whole foods and nutrition and all those things affect our overall health and happiness. There's a greater demand for people, for information that will help people live a more holistic life. And it's interesting because we're really just getting back to basics. We're kind of reversing a lot of the advances as they were seen that happened post World War II, where we started boxing and canning things and making things more convenient. As a society, I think we'll keep some of those things, but there's a lot we're willing to let go as we get back to the way things were. And that's really, I think, as a whole, what we're trying to focus on as a couple, as to what we're putting out there.
Well, as much as we love essential oils and are so passionate about sharing those, we realize that they're just one component of a whole healthy lifestyle, and you have to have a really good base of nutrition, getting enough sleep, moving your body. All of those things come first. And that's something that I think as a society we've kind of really gotten away from.
Yeah, I think that's really good. That's definitely some really good ideas, and I like how it's kind of grown and expanded as it's went. So, and this is kind of a question I'm going to kind of deviate just a little bit here because I'm kind of interested in what you guys are building, and kind of still tie it back in. But so, what is your all's future plans? Like, what do you guys see your business building into as you go? And in order to get to that, how are you setting goals, like short term, like 30-day goals, 90-day goals, that kind of thing? What do you see going forward, and how are you going to get there?
So what I really want to do is, as a mother, I want to simplify what moms can do to have healthy families. And so in down the road, we have some really exciting things coming with really simple meal plans, and we have a lot of friends that don't cook anymore, and we both love to cook.
Or never have
because they didn't know, or the abundance of information out there about nutrition is so confusing and overwhelming that we want to just simplify everything. Here's simple meal plans, here's simple fitness routines you can do at home with your kids, and then incorporate how you can simply use essential oils to support your lifestyle. So that's our goal. We have some really, I can't say too much about what we have coming because it's a really fun formula, and all really basic that you can just interchange things to vary things around. Do you want to talk about goals?
Yeah. So the thing about the business that we built is that it's been very successful. So just to put it at the outset, our current business moves over $2 million a year of product. And we work actually with over 4,000 individuals across the country who are engaged in some way, either as a customer or even as an educator. And in those efforts, it's really given us a lot of opportunity to focus on a wide range of things. So when we come at this as Build Mind Body, for example, we just launched a new website, buildmindbody.com. And as we were coming up with the categories for this website, we were realizing, oh my gosh, there's so much we can talk about with leadership development and with personal growth, and not to mention all of the wellness aspects that we cover. So when it comes down to what our goals are, number one, we operate in a monthly cyclical sales model, and so we're very interested from month to month what the sales are, and we have consistent sales goals that we're looking at. I think that's the money's got to come from somewhere, and the rubber's hitting the road in that way for us. The essential oil sales are still our largest source of income, and we anticipate that will continue to be the case as we grow the rest of what we do. It's a very lucrative model, and so we found it to be profitable and a place that we want to continue to focus. Beyond that, though, we have projects, and so when we lay out goals, it's mostly task-oriented, project-oriented type of goals, where, for example, Laura is currently working on learning internet email marketing, and she signed up for a program, and we have a deadline on that to finish by mid-December. And that's just an example that within the next 30 days, Laura is wanting to understand and master that better. I spent some time in that in my past job responsibilities when I was working for other people. But Laura has been on this learning curve over the last couple of years, picking a lot of these things up. And this is part of her education that she's taken on at this step. So I don't know if that answers the question fully, but we're definitely setting goals out there, mostly project-oriented stuff.
But we also have goals that are maybe a little harder to measure, like saying completing a program, where we have goals to get into and help so many families, and those are really important goals to us as well, and often maybe a better measure of what we really truly want to be accomplishing in changing people's lives.
Yeah, it's a little bit more broad aspect, but I mean, it's an overall goal for sure. Yeah.
It's kind of funny when we started just this project, and everybody has like a planner that they're selling, and that's like, it's always built around these goal setting type of things. And so far as we're doing more and more interviews, I think almost everybody we've talked to literally says to the word uses project planning versus goal setting. And so it's kind of an interesting disconnect that I feel like we're starting to discover here between people who are trying to help people out. And so they're explaining like, oh, you need to set 30-day goals, you need to set 90-day goals. But it seems like most of the really successful people that we're finding are actually doing it more of a project based, like, hey, we need to get this project done. It needs to get done by this point in time, and balancing things that way. So we definitely understand that and kind of resonate with that now.
Absolutely.
We do believe in the power of a deadline to make things happen.
To get things done, right? If you have no deadline, then it can take forever.
We have definitely seen the benefit of having deadlines and and the detriment that can come if you don't have deadlines set up. And so, overall, it's nice to put those deadlines out there, but it seems like it's easier to stay motivated, focused, on task if it's, like you're saying, project oriented.
Yeah. So how does that work into planning out your days and your weeks and months? And how do you guys, for us, I know a challenge for us is not only keeping track of our own schedule and making sure that we're where we're supposed to be, but also communicating that to each other and making sure that the other person knows and helps and supports that.
Yeah, definitely. Several years ago, before we started working together, we realized that one of the best things we could do to let each other know what was happening is have a joint shared calendar on our phones where we could each put things in and we didn't forget to let the other person know what was happening. So we've done that for years, and that I think has been really helpful.
You know how when people get married, they have like the table set up, and some people get to stand up and give advice to the couple. Honestly, like if I was in a position to stand up and give advice to the happy new couple, I would say,
share a Google Calendar.
Share a Google Calendar. Honestly, it's funny, but people say, I respect each other, love each other, but in the back of your mind,
those are all great. Don't get us wrong.
Yeah.
No, and that's what you're doing by respecting each other. If there's one thing that drives a woman crazy, it's a guy who doesn't know what she wants.
Things, right?
Yes.
And if there's one thing that drives a guy crazy, it's a woman that won't let him do what he wants all the time. And so when it comes down to it, having the calendar ensures that both people's needs are going to be met, so that they can say what their expectations are. They can put their plan out there. And I'm telling you, and you can schedule everything in if you want to be that specific.
So that's a small thing, but we have a rough schedule that we go by daily. We get up in the morning, we work out, we have breakfast as a family, we do a family devotional, and then I'm the one that starts schoolwork with the kids while he's working. And then in the afternoon when their schoolwork is done, and I need to get some things done, then he'll take over. We prefer to have a parent present with our children the majority of the time. We feel like that's a really important thing. We tried to work at the same time, and it wasn't happy for anybody. So we typically split time that way, and that's our rough schedule. Honestly, we're both capable of switching out roles. So he will do homeschool if I really have some pressing project that I need to finish up. He'll cook, he'll take over. So we can interchange pretty seamlessly, which has been, I think, really helpful.
So the point that needs to be made, though, at least just as far as our dynamic is concerned, to your original question about a schedule, is that maybe this is the case in most relationships, but I'm pretty schedule averse. I don't love having a routine and being tied down to a set schedule. And Laura thrives.
Love a schedule. Love a schedule.
And so you can hear some of the concessions that she's made, where she uses words like, we have a rough daily schedule. And you can also hear some of the concessions that I've made where we say we have a rough daily schedule. and so we've learned to work together on that. And the way that I've survived that as a husband with a wife who has these high scheduling expectations, and the way that she survived it as a wife who has a husband with low scheduling expectations, is that we've been interchangeable. And it's made it so that I'm comfortable making a Costco run, and even going to Sprouts, as long as I have her list, what she wants from, sorry, I say Sprouts, I should say the health food store.
Yeah.
Store. And she can also interchange and get some business tasks done, and take care of things that are tasks that I might be more concerned with, and things that need to happen. And so we've become very comfortable in that, to the point that I find myself actually having to check myself at times, getting upset with men who don't take those responsibilities. And when I see, for example, if I'm coaching people who we work with and trying to train educators, and I'm seeing that some of these schedules are getting strained, and I see these men who aren't willing to cook dinner or aren't willing to go out and pick things up, I'm like, come on, man, this makes life a lot better. If I want to get stuff done, just step it up, brother.
But we realize that we're in a pretty unique situation where we do spend pretty much every day, all day together as a family, and that's not everybody's reality.
Well, and we've also been able to adjust over a period of a few years.
True, we've been married quite a while.
Yeah, it's been a long-term adjustment for us.
Yeah, it's
very naturally.
Yeah, it's not something that happens overnight, but it's still important to be able to help each other out.
Right.
Absolutely.
Well, so even though you both can do multiple tasks, what would you say each other's strengths are? Who's better at one thing maybe, or what do each of you bring to the table that really are your strengths?
So I tend to be more on the business task-oriented side. Obviously, the outward-facing. I'm the one that's out doing a lot of the face-to-face stuff with our distribution leaders. I'm the one who's also tracking the numbers and keeping track of the core issues that we're dealing with the business. Lots of coaching, interacting, sales channel management, those types of things. On the other hand, as we've talked about, Laura is just an expert at gathering information and putting things, generating ideas. And she's, while I'm kind of the people refer to me as the marketing guy, it's only because I'm kind of the one who has made it hit the team, hit the group, kind of get out to everybody. But the real marketing genius behind the scenes is Laura, who's doing all this research and looking at everything. And as a result of that, we also refer to Laura as our OSHA representative, or our safety committee. She does a lot of risk assessment for us, to be honest. Everything from did you lock all the doors in the house as we're going to bed to hey, are you sure that that's the best use of our resources, whether it's our finances or our time or things like that. And so I found her to be a great what's the word? A great
monitor.
Well, not a monitor, but like somebody who's strong in that can really help me, who's a little more, you guys can probably tell from the way that I look at time management, somebody who's maybe a little more free, a little more open, a little more maybe willing to take risks. She's been the yin to my yang on that. So.
Good. So, I mean, you definitely hit on your strengths, and then as far as maybe scheduling individual tasks, you said it yourself that you can share those tasks, and I think that's really important. That when Laura needs to do something with business, you can work with the kiddos, Spencer, and do the homeschooling. So I definitely liked that. How do you decide who does the things nobody wants to do, though? who runs the errands nobody wants to run, or who has the yucky customer service phone calls, or whatever it may be?
So Spencer typically does all the customer service stuff. He's just so good at that. So I guess we kind of decide tasks based on who's better at accomplishing that.
Yeah.
If it's something like a customer service phone call that you don't really want to have, right? That happens occasionally where you have somebody who's a little flustered.
Sure.
Yeah.
So you can qualify, we interchange things, but obviously we both bring different skill sets to the table when we're changing those things. So yes, I cook. Yes, I clean. We do those things differently. And, still within certain parameters. Obviously, we try to fill our house, for example, with healthy ingredients and things like that. And so if I'm cooking with healthy ingredients, but I have certain specialties that just I'll make, and the kids will be excited. Oh, Dad's making his, stir fry or whatever.
Yeah.
But Laura's the master of making, sauces or gravies, So I'm sitting here, I'm giving this example just to say that we do things differently.
Yeah.
And, however, when it comes, let's just give the example, of dishes, okay? Because when you're both working from home all day and you're making healthy meals, you generate a lot of dishes. So by the end of the day, we do have a lot of dishes in the sink. And the way that we decide basically who's going to be doing that is who needs to keep working on things either after the kids are in bed or who still has things that they weren't able to get to today. And then the other one just picks up the slack. It's an unspoken agreement that we have, that you just are observant and look around and say, is this something that needs to be done for the household or for the business? And if that's not checked off before bed tonight, either we make a group agreement that this isn't going to happen tonight, or one of us gets it done while the other one is still working on another task. But, maybe on that given night, we're willing to let the dishes sit to the next morning because we decide that it's more important to spend time together.
Yeah.
Or it's more important to talk through something that didn't get talked through all day, even though we saw each other all day long. We didn't actually talk about the important thing.
Uninterrupted time to talk to each other.
Yes. Yeah. We understand.
Yeah.
So how do you guys, I know you kind of developed a rough schedule. And so we've definitely kind of hit that already. But how do you really set, and especially with like the traveling that you did over the last year, how do you really develop time set for this is how much we're working on the business now, we're working on our relationship. And I mean, for you guys, you have the extra level of kids as well. And I'm sure that plays into personal time. So basically just, how do you handle all those things?
So a good example of how this can all get thrown around is with the transition from living on the road to getting a home. When we moved into a 3,900 square foot house, it was literally 4 times the size of our trailer.
10?
Yeah.
Sorry, 10
times.
Oh my word!
It's so different.
It's 10 times the size of our trailer, and we had to furnish it. And we had set aside funds and everything to make that happen, but it takes a lot of time, either online or in person, to furnish a place. And so this season that we've been in for the last few weeks has has made us tip more towards getting our home organized so that we're not on mattresses on the floor and clothes aren't in piles against the wall. And boxes are actually on, put away in bookshelves and things like that. You don't realize how much of that organization you rely on just to keep a daily flow, especially if your home is your workplace.
I think one thing we've realized over the course of our marriage and working together is that not everything is always the same month to month to month, year to year to year. Mm-hmm. There are different seasons of your life that you need to focus on something different. For example, when we were traveling, it was a lot harder to get work done than I think we originally anticipated that it would be. And that was a real struggle for us, trying to figure out accomplishing all that we wanted to get done and having quality family time. And so we ended up tipping more towards having family time because we were in a teeny tiny space and couldn't stay inside all day to get projects done.
Right.
And now that we're in a home, like Spencer said, we've been spending a lot of time getting our home in order. And so there will be our upcoming season, we know, is going to be catching up on projects that we've been wanting to do that have been in the pipeline for a long time that we just haven't been able to get to. And so that will be our focus coming up. As far as our relationship goes, we're always working on our relationship, meaning always spending time. Our relationship with each other and with our kids always comes first. That's always number one. And that never changes.
So as far as how we're spending our time and how we time block, I think if you can kind of distill what we've just described in this explanation that we're giving, is that it varies and we're constantly shifting. We're on our toes. We're looking at what season are we in, and or what does this week ask of us. Laura's favorite question, being the schedule queen at the beginning of the day, is what do you want to get done today? And being like she said, being the political, tactful customer service guy that I am, I typically say, what do you need to get done? And I'm sure this is a familiar conversation.
So my list is always like,
I'm sure this is a familiar conversation for couples who work together, but when it comes down to it, I've learned very quickly to think about the 2 or 3 things that are the most important for that day, to focus on those things. And I found that I go to bed at night not feeling anxious or upset about the day, as long as I was able to knock 2 or 3 of those things out. And so, and for her, she operates a little bit differently, where she understands that 2 or 3 things would be a good progression for the day, but she's still going to think about all 15 things that she wants to get done during the day and try to get to those if she can knock 2 and 3 out. And the reality is that she usually gets through 2 or 3, but once in a while she'll get through more, or at least plan ahead. And so she feels good if she was able to get more than expected done. And so knowing that about her, I try to be very efficient in my tasks. I get those 2 or 3 things knocked out so that I feel satisfied, and then allow her to spend time working on her 2 or 3 things and some extra credit so that she can sleep at night.
Yeah. Well, so can you give us an example of maybe, when you've had a crisis at home and how it affected the business? I know home and business is the same for you guys, but say even when you were traveling, like you get a flat tire and how does that affect, how does that affect your day? How do you go about handling crises versus at home or with the business?
So, working for yourself and being around each other all the time, you get your highs and your lows. And, crises, especially when you have a lot of time freedom, you kind of take them in stride. Maybe a death in the family, you just adjust.
Yeah.
Maybe.
And we did have that. There was a death in the family last year while we were traveling, and we had to change our travel plans and get back to a different state for family things. And that was definitely an adjustment. But I feel like when there's a crisis, you kind of don't have a choice. You just have to deal with it and handle it, right? Like you have to just adjust and maybe put things on hold or lower your expectations of what you can get done right then.
I think what she's really getting at when she talks about adjusting expectations is that is that we assume that we're always going to be operating at 100%. And so we set goals and long-term vision based on, oh yeah, okay, so if I work a 10-hour day and put in a 60-hour week, and then, we can spend time here and we can do this here. And you kind of set that as your ideal. And you
like
realize,
in 30 days, we'll have this done, right?
Yeah.
And that's what you set your deadline. But if things come up and then you push it back a week, or you end up staying up later.
So I guess what I'm getting at is there are some things that are non-negotiable. And I have pulled many, many, many late nights, all-nighters, making sure that those things get done even in times of crisis. Mm-hmm. And, even if that crisis is that maybe you're going through a rough week, maybe it's just really hard to be motivated that week. Maybe you're feeling discouraged about a past month's performance. Or maybe, for example, we've had certain people in really key distribution points in our business that have fallen out and have decided to stop educating or to stop teaching, and where they were managing an entire region of our distribution channel, our distribution network. I had to step in and start managing that channel, and it's just something that spreads you a lot thinner. And at the same time, you have to understand that people are going to make these decisions, and that you need to honor that. And these are people who you've probably served and loved and been friends with, and you still are going to honor their personal decisions. So there's a lot of emotion, a lot of things that go on, but you still have those kind of non-negotiables that are going to happen. And then the other things that you may have had expectations on, like these projects for us that Laura's referring to, are you need to be willing to be flexible and let those shift maybe to the next week, or maybe the next period, whether it's a month or a quarter or whatever you were aiming for.
Yeah. I think that's really awesome that you have that ability too. And it's different, even though, like we have a brick and mortar business. So we have somewhere to be. So when something is happening maybe at home or something's happening at the office, it's, even though that seems different, I mean, it's still the same answer. I like your answer about you have to be as flexible as you can be, and you still prioritize, but you just do what you got to do. And
all it is a different set of non-negotiables. You just have a different checklist that you're making sure are covered. Mm-hmm. And, we have certain aspects of our business that are different than somebody who runs a brick and mortar. Certain non-negotiables have to be covered. So
yes.
It's no matter where you are, you just make sure that those pieces are covered. And that I was saying to Laura earlier today, as we were thinking through some of these things, the idea that those non-negotiables will never change is silly, because no matter how big a business gets, the buck stops with somebody. And when I was for example, the director of marketing for an online e-commerce company, the buck stopped for me for email and promo code issues. And it didn't matter if it was a holiday or a weekend. If there was a crisis with an email,
3 a.m,
yeah, the buck stopped with me. And so I was the guy. But guess what? The CEO and the president and the programmers and everybody else that were enjoying their vacation. Mm-hmm. So it's no different. When you own your own business and you make this decision as a couple to jump into this, you have to be okay with the fact that there's going to be some non-negotiables. Yeah. The real question is, are you okay with those? This is really actually at the core of whether you love what you do or not. Because if you can't handle those non-negotiables in your business, you might want to look around.
Yeah.
Because if that's something that's upsetting you or throwing you off so much as a couple that the non-negotiables can't even get done, then look at what you're doing really closely. And absolutely. For us, this business, the non-negotiables are things that for sure we can take in strides, for sure we can continue to work on, and everything else that can be adjusted still gives us room to dream and to be comfortable being flexible.
Yeah. Very good.
Well, we kind of hit on it earlier with I know you kind of mentioned how your morning starts off, but you guys have any types, a lot of people are big on affirmations and quotes and reading and that kind of stuff. How do you guys get your day started?
So I love to get up a little bit before my kids do, and some days that has to be really early because they've been getting up earlier and earlier. I So I prefer to get up before everybody else is awake in the house, and I spend some time reading, meditating, praying, thinking about what I want my day to look like, sometimes about the specific needs of our business that I'm working on, or the specific needs of our children, because all of those things are important to us. So I like to spend usually 30 minutes at least before anybody's awake thinking through all those things. I don't have any specific quote that I go to, but just that me personal time reflecting on things that I'm not worried about, but just things that are on my mind always makes my day go so much better. Mm-hmm. And then I'll work out and make breakfast, and then our day gets started.
Good.
And for me, this won't surprise you based on what you know about me now with my love of flexibility. But I tend to seek those things out as I feel a need, and it's not that I don't gain strength from having the scheduled daily devotional. I actually run that every day for our family. We feel that's a role that I need to play in our home, and so I do run that, and I make that a big part. I also make sure that we're praying together as a family and as individuals, reminding the kids and myself to continue to be in touch with our higher power. That's important to us. And as far as other opportunities, I tend to really be focused on the needs of others or something that's weighing heavily on my mind, and I might research an article or look for some quotes or things like that. I realize I do spend a lot of my time looking at those types of things and forwarding them along, but I do it more on an as-needed basis. I don't have so much of a ritual that I follow.
Yeah.
Well, are there any big, I know you've kind of sprinkled them throughout the whole interview, but are there any big tips that you have that's just this is what we found is the secret to our success in in your business and your marriage, anything like that you can pass on?
I would say number one is communication. And that's something that we've been married 13 years, and we've been communicating for a long time. Right? We knew each other 5 years before we got married. And early on in our relationship, because we didn't live in the same state, and we were basically pen pals. And so we learned to communicate on a deeper level from the get-go, and I think that's something that has served us really well over the years. But what were we gonna say?
Well, I was just going to say that one of the things that's interesting is as you talk to other couples, I find this to be fairly consistent across the board. Is that as a marketing guy, I put it this way: is that even in your relationship, you kind of have a personal brand of who you are and what I feel like I'm supposed to be. Mm-hmm. And if there's one thing that I can say, even just about the last few years, as we've gone through some transitions from, starting to grow the business together and then going on the road and then settling here again, it's that a lot of those things have broken down some of those things about who we thought we were or who we thought we were supposed to be. And it's led me, at least, to be a lot more open with my feelings. And what that does as a couple is brings you a lot closer. Don't be afraid to be open and genuine, and don't be afraid to talk through those things, because you married this person for a reason. You've partnered together for a reason, and there's certainly a group of things that you really appreciate and love about that person. The more real that you become, you actually find that you get more connected on more levels the more that you're willing to share. And the more you're willing to be authentic. And I think a lot of the times authenticity in relationships, I'll say it this way: you think you're protecting the other person, really what you're trying to do is protect yourself. And the more authentic that you are in your communication, the more they can be a support to you. And you'll find that you actually have more appreciation and more love for that person because they accept you as you really are, than them accepting you for who you were trying to be.
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It definitely got pretty deep there.
But how important that is for married couples to hear, and you guys have been married longer than we have. And so to just know that it's going to always continually be a growing process.
Well, and the reason that I bring that up a little bit is because we have friends that have said things like, oh gosh, how can you guys be on the road together and in a small space like that? We would drive each other crazy. And the truth is that it's the opposite for us. We're crazy if we don't see each other. We're crazy if we're not around each other.
If one of us is gone all day, it's so strange and weird that we haven't seen each other all day.
Yep.
And I realize that what's going on behind the scenes with a lot of that is that there's certain aspects of their individual personality that they hold dear. For example, perhaps being super stubborn, or perhaps needing to hold their end of the line and saying, I got to dig my heels in, or else this person is going to overpower me in this thing, and I'll never have the ability to watch my sports on the weekend again, or I'll never have the ability to go have girls' night, or whatever it is that couples do to each other. The more open you are about your real feelings, and the more open you are about your authentic self, and not just trying to put on a show or trying to hold the line on some arbitrary thing that you think is going to protect you, that's where you start to have real freedom in communication, real flow, and the disagreements can melt away because you're putting the relationship and the communication in the other person first.
When you learn what truly is important to your spouse, the more you communicate, you learn what really matters. And in a partnership, you're willing to put the other person first and their needs and work on that together.
So my last piece of parting advice on this subject would just be this. Okay. And this is what I've been able to distill it down to. It's even just within the last couple of weeks, watching some other friends of mine go through similar transitionary situations. Women need to know that they're supported by their husbands, and that the husbands are going to let them spread their wings and be who they want to be. And promise the husbands that are listening that you're not going to be afraid of the woman that your wife will become once you see who that is. And so just let it happen. Don't be afraid of letting your wife change and evolve and become the best version of herself. And then on the flip side, women, it's very easy with the husbands. All they need to know is that you love them.
That is very common to our last couple that we interviewed. Mm-hmm. Said that they actually talked about the 5 love languages book, mm-hmm. And how what their individual love languages are. And a lot of time, women need to know that they're being heard, and they need to hear that they're being, that they are supported. And men, sometimes all they need to hear is just that they love you and that they're appreciated. And it is different for everyone, but that definitely hits home right there.
All right. So kind of bringing it back to back to a little more lighter of a subject. If you guys get a date night or a free time together, what is your absolute favorite thing to go and do together?
We're really boring.
We were laughing about this earlier because we don't really care what we do, as long as it's just the two of us.
Yeah.
And we can talk. We love to talk and to dream and plan and just be together. We don't go see movies a lot. We love food, so we like to go eat, of course. Mm-hmm. But we do things where we can just be together and still communicate. And when we were traveling, we didn't go out a whole lot because you can't leave your kids in a trailer.
Right. Frowned upon.
So we did a lot of things at home, date nights, and ended up just laying on our bed talking.
Yeah.
That's our favorite thing to do.
And it may or may not surprise you guys by this point, but I do a lot of talking and Laura does a lot of listening. And there's a good flow to that, but she also knows that, if she has ideas or things that she wants to talk about, that I'll listen. The funniest thing about this question is that we actually really suck at doing things on our own at this point. Because we've been together so much. Like, what's the number one thing that happens if I go to the store by myself? If I go to the grocery store?
He calls me like 3 times. Did I get this? Or
how many of these?
I found this. Do you want one of those?
Yeah.
And
so he always goes, token phone call.
It's not that I'm disabled in making decisions or that I rely on her, that I'm scared of it. Instead, what it is I'm so used to the value of her opinion in our decisions that I don't prefer to make decisions without her, even if it's, should I get black or pinto beans? You know?
It sounds so funny, but
no, but I so value over the years the combination of our expertise that even just a simple phone call to try to collect that doesn't seem like it would be that strange. So trying to organize our home here and getting furniture and decorating it and stuff. How many times has the wife brought home something and the husband's like, was that really, like, are you going to keep that, or was it just it's a test?
Yeah.
And
you really like that thing,
and we haven't had that problem in decorating our home. We've actually agreed just about 100% on everything as we've been putting the home together. There's been zero disagreements about what color couch and what size console and what kind of curtains and all.
Well, there's been give and take. We love to talk through things.
Yeah. Good.
So, all right.
Anyway.
Was there anything else that we left out or that you thought you might want to add in or talk about a little bit more?
I can't think of anything.
I can't think of anything.
I feel like the chance to review these things has really opened up to us just how much of a process working together and getting to spend this much time together really, really does. I think we live in a special time in the history of the world where we can actually spend this kind of time together. Even when in older times where couples were farming together, or the wife was in a traditional role, cooking and taking care of the home, and the husband was in the fields or whatever, that they still didn't know each other like we've been able to get to know each other.
I think we both appreciate that our roles can be fluid and that we understand each other's responsibilities that, may traditionally have been gender specific, but we like that we can just do anything, do whatever,
help
each other.
It's opened our eyes to the capacity of human relationships, because I think some people expect a lot less just because their personal relationship, even with their significant other, maybe isn't the strongest or isn't the most vibrant or isn't the most healthy at times. And so maybe it casts some doubt or pensiveness, at least, on other relationships, or being willing to reach outside of yourself. And because we know what we've been able to create together, it fuels our passion for sharing that through our business and helping people understand that, there is a way to make this happen. There is a way to grow closer. And if this is the kind of life that you're looking for, there's a way to make it happen. And even though we're two individual people that are different than everybody else in the world, we figured out a way to make it happen. Yeah. And hopefully some of the things we have to share can help people see that too.
Absolutely. I think you guys definitely provided a lot of great, experiences and wisdom, and all of the listeners, just a different viewpoint on entrepreneurship and marriage and family and just working together. So thank you both, Laura and Spencer, for being on today, and we can't wait to see where your guys' journey leads you as well. And
thank you for having us.
Yeah, absolutely.